Guys, we are still in the dial-up phase of blockchain technology, as most of these blockchains can't talk to each other, and you have to do all this bridging and these cross-chain swaps, all these things makes it complicated for a novice user. What you'll find is that the internet had to go through the same parallels that blockchain technology did. You didn't be able to send a Gmail to a Yahoo, etc., etc. So there is a project called Polygon that I've talked about on this channel a lot, and they are aiming to solve this interoperability problem, taking it a step above modularity. As you guys know, I made a video talking about monolithic versus modular blockchains and how to analyze layer 1 chains. Definitely give that video a watch if you haven't. But this is taking it a step above, connecting monolithic and modular chains so they can all talk together and ultimately solve the interoperability problem, so that in the future, it'll feel like everything is just one chain, just like the internet. It feels like we're on one internet, even though you have all these different protocols and programming language and different servers and firewalls. It all feels like one internet. Blockchain is headed the same way. So I'm making this video to talk about the Polygon Aggregation Layer, how it aims to solve this problem, and how you can benefit as an investor and a yield farmer. So before we get started, I do have to say none of this is financial advice. These are my own perspectives, research, and opinions, and should be treated as such. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. We're gonna hop on the article that they wrote about the ag layer, and I'm just going to demystify all of this stuff as we read through it. All right, so here we are on polygon.technology/ag layer. Like I said, ag layer stands for aggregation layer. And it says here the aggregation layer solves blockchain fragmentation. Fragmentation is, being separate, having a bridge and everything that I talked about. And when you bridge, it is a risk to bridge when you're going up or down a tech stack, okay? That's when hacks happen, vulnerabilities happen. The aggregation layer solves blockchain fragmentation by enabling sovereign chains to securely share liquidity, users, and state. So what is ag layer? Aggregated blockchain design borrows the best of the monolithic and modular approach to scaling. In its end state, the ag layer will provide a common language for secure, atomic interoperability among heterogeneous chains. The ag layer will be a decentralized protocol with two components, a common bridge and the zk-powered mechanism that provides a cryptographic guarantee of safety for seamless cross-chain interoperability. With ZK proofs, and I also talked about ZK proofs in the video that I referenced in the beginning of the video, the link is in the description. With ZK proofs providing security, chains connected to the ag layer can remain sovereign and modular while preserving the seamless UX of monolithic chains. The feature, native tokens, unified liquidity, and sovereignty. Let's talk about those. So by using a single bridge smart contract, assets on the ag layer will always be native and never wrapped, providing a better UX with no intermediaries. So normally when you bridge, the chain where you're going from, like let's say you go to bridge some USDC, what normally happens is the USC gets burned from the chain you're leaving and it gets minted on the chain that you're bridging to. This way, and which means it's not native. In this way, it'll always be native tokens moving around, which is less risky. Unified liquidity. The TVL of all connected chains is shared, allowing developers to focus on use case and product market fit, not bootstrapping users. This initial release prioritizes safety over speed by first selling to Ethereum. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, when you spin up a new chain, you have to create different incentives to, bootstrap liquidity, give away free tokens. But if everything is in one, you can literally just focus on how the product works. And liquidity will come to the best products. That's just how it is. It's capitalism. And then sovereignty. The ag layer will be compatible with shared sequencers and the third-party DA solutions. Connected chains can even use their native token for gas. That is really, really cool. Okay, now let's dive into this article, Aggregation, a New Thesis. So this is what the aggregated tech stack looks like. So you have the unified bridge contract and everything just kind of plugs into it, right? And it's on top of ETH. I was talking to the head of DeFi at Polygon. We got some stuff in the works with Polygon. Keep you guys' eyes open. I'm not going to say anything here. I'll leave it at that. But there are a few chains that's already committed to signing up to this ag layer, right? A couple big chains. I'm not going to say any because, I don't know if I'm supposed to or not. But this is what it will look like. Everything will be connected. And this is kind of like how TCP/IP works. So they go on to talk about blockchains don't look or feel like the internet. Instead of a unified, highly scalable network, users facing scaling limitations and bad UX due to fragmented liquidity and state. Unfortunately, the ever-increasing list of new chains being launched has compounded the problem. The environment is reminiscent of the pre-internet era, siloed and lacking interoperability, like we said in the beginning of the video. To solve these challenges, Polygon Labs researchers and engineers have designed the aggregation layer, a novel solution to unify the whole of Web3, like the invention of TCP/IP, which created a seamlessly unified internet. The aggregation layer, or Ag layer, unites a divided blockchain landscape into a web of zk secured L1 and L2 chains that feel like a single chain. Okay, so let's dive into that a little deeper. So TCP/IP stands for Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol, and it's the basis of what's called our client server model, right? So in case you didn't know this or not, anytime you see a website or anything on the internet, there's always servers having to host what you see on the screen, right? The client server model is basically an explanation on how different servers talk to each other. So when you go on different websites and do different things, go on Google, takes you to another website, you essentially hop into a different server every time you go to a different website, right? Now, back in the day, if you wanted to spin up your own website, you had to know how to host your own servers and have firewalls so you didn't get hacked, right? But then with the Apples and the Microsofts and the Googles, they started hosting sites on their server farms and everything like that, so that it takes that issue away. You don't have to do that. You have these drag and drop website creator tools like Wix where you can just create something, but there's still a server behind that, right? And TCP/IP made it so that it's almost like it's one programming language in a way, to where if you build something for it, it works everywhere across the internet because it's built on top of TCP/IP. Now, Ethereum is almost like TCP/IP, where blockchain technology is an evolution of the internet. And all these things, like you saw in that first description, is built on top of Ethereum. And the cool thing is, we get to own Ethereum. So it's almost like we get to own a piece of TCP/IP. And not only can layer 1 blockchains connect to it, but layer 2s will be able to connect to it as well. So you don't have to bridge from L1 to L2. It's one bridge contract. So it's almost like you're just going from one website to another. You don't have to worry about configuring a server and making sure the server's safe and all that stuff. It's all under one standard. And it's using zero knowledge proofs. And ZK proofs, like I talked about in the video that I referenced, hence the name zero knowledge proof. That's exactly what they allow you to do. What's the zero knowledge proof? You can prove that something is true without showing how you came to that conclusion, right? So picture like, where's Waldo? This is a famous example people always use. And you're trying to find Waldo. If you add in a ZK proof, and imagine the picture, it has like just a bunch of random people, right? So you have to sift through a crowd of people. A ZKP will allow you to say, hey, it'll create a small circle, right? And it shows Waldo's face, so you don't know where it is in the photo. So you know the ZK proof found Waldo, but it doesn't tell you how it found it. And this is good because, like, if we're gonna have all these institutions using blockchain technology, we don't want their customer data being able to be seen on chain. Banks don't want their competitors or regular people to know what they're buying, what they're selling, and things like that. So zero knowledge proofs are definitely going to be used because a company's biggest liability is their company data and their customer data, right? And zero knowledge proofs allows people to keep that safeguarded, but still be able to operate, right? And still be able to confirm their identity without giving too much away. All right, so it says here the Ag layer is a decentralized protocol that does two things. It aggregates ZK proofs from all connected chains, and it ensures safety for near instant atomic cross-chain transactions. So atomic composability is basically like, think of like a flash loan, right? If you go and take out a flash loan, basically how flash loans work, at least on Aave, you can take out a loan for an amount, but you have to pay it back within that same block. Or everything you did with that money, whether it's just go stake it somewhere or swap it somewhere or whatever, it gets unwound, right? So if that one thing doesn't happen, everything else doesn't happen as well. So it's atomic composability just basically means that you can ensure that if you do multiple transactions, you don't have to worry about one little piece going wrong in that daisy chain, if that makes sense. And if you want an in the weeds technical explainer, you can click this link here. All right, so now it says the first essential components of the Ag layer are live. Right now, the only protocol connected is the Polygon zkEVM, which makes sense. And like I said, while other chains are working to plug into the Ag layer soon, this is just the first step. So now that you have like a visual of this unified bridge, it talks about how they'll be able to do this cool bridge and call function, which is really good for yield farmers. So let me read through this and explain. So it says this early Ag layer release also contains a bridge and call solidly library, which means developers can program logic that executes calls on a different chain. Not only can users transfer assets between different chains, bridge, they It can also trigger contracts on a different chain after the asset has arrived. So it says a user on soon to be connected Ag Chain 1 who holds DAI can buy an NFT on Polygon zkEVM without having to first bridge funds to Polygon zkEVM from the end user's perspective. This will feel like using a single chain. Initially, there will be high latency, but as the Ag layer evolves, its singular goal is to lower that latency as much as possible, with future iterations of the Ag layer later this year, dropping the time substantially. And an end state of near instant cross-chain transactions. The point is that with Ag layer, users can interact with dApps without needing to know that they are accessing another chain. Same with the internet. And they go to give an example. The bridge and call feature enables users to send assets and then participate in activity on another chain. Let's say Alice is an Ethereum user and sees a character skin on a gaming chain built on Polygon CDK that she wants to buy. And she wants to buy it by first swapping ETH to matic on Polygon zkEVM because it has deeper liquidity than the Polygon CDK chain. Alice can bridge to Polygon zkEVM, perform a swap, and then purchase a skin on the gaming chain all in one transaction. From Alice's perspective, this will feel simple like a single environment. This is only the beginning, but it's an important beginning. The Ag layer is the next evolutionary step of blockchain design, improving on the currently prevailing approaches, namely monolithic and modular. Right? You see the old monkey, then modular, and then aggregated. Okay, and now they go on to talk about monolithic versus modular blockchains, but I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to sum it up for you guys here. So a blockchain has 3 layers. It does 3 different things. It has a consensus layer, has a data layer, and an execution layer. The consensus layer says what's true. For Bitcoin, that's proof of work. For Ethereum, that's proof of stake. The data layer is the storage, so storing everything that's happened in each block in the past. And execution is your computational finality, right? And on a monolithic chain, all 3 of those things happen at once. And a blockchain is in the business of selling block space, just like a airline is in the business of selling flight seats, tickets. If it's only one plane going from San Francisco to New York, it's going to be expensive tickets because everyone's trying to get on that flight. It's the same thing with blockchains. When network activity increases on ETH, whether if it's a lot of swaps on decentralized exchanges, minting NFTs, borrowing and lending platforms, it doesn't matter. All transactions on the chain is trying to fight to get inside of that block. And that's what makes gas fees raise, right? So basically, a modular means specialization. It's like division of labor. And instead of having everything done on the layer 1, taking a modular approach allows you to build these different side chains or side initiatives to free up some of the block space. Let me give you an example. So sharding, that is supposed to handle the data. So you have these parallel chains that run alongside the chains. The data stored here, so it doesn't have to be stored on the main chain. And then you have these layer 2s, optimistic and ZK rollups. The word rollup is kind of a hint at exactly what they do. And rollups is designed to take the execution so it can happen on the layer 2 and free up space on the layer 1. So sharding frees up memory in blocks, execution frees up computational finality so that the L1 only has to worry about consensus so that gas fees can stay down and it can still be scalable. So a roll up, what they do is it's kind of like when you go to a bar. You don't swipe your card every single time you want to buy something. There'll be a long line. It wouldn't be as pleasant of an experience. You open up a tab. So you swipe your card once. Every time you get a drink, add it to the tab, add it to the tab. And when you close your tab, you pay for all those transactions at once. That's exactly what a layer 2 does. The name roll up. It rolls up all these transactions to the smallest packet of data possible. And then it submits it to Ethereum or the layer 1 so that it does all those transactions at once. And once it submits it, like I said, smallest packet of data, it's not as much block space being taken up, right? It's kind of like when you send an email. You compress it, small packet of data, and once the receiver receives it, it can unzip the file, and then the data increases and they can see everything. It's the same kind of idea. And this is actually, and I talked about in the video, definitely get that video to watch, this is how the chips evolved. Like they always give credit to Moore's law, but they took a modular approach. This is how the cells in our body work. We don't have one big cell that does all these things. We have an amoeba with a small cell in the middle, and the things on the outside, they're specialized for different blood flow, digestion, like different things. This is how our body works. And I always like to say, as it works in nature, same thing with technology. So modularity is a big step, but aggregation is taking it a step further in that it's allowing the monolithic and modular chains to be connected to a base layer so that they can all talk to each other. So it talks about the problems with modularity. So it says modularity results in many chains running independently and in parallel, each maintaining sovereignty. It allows for much higher scalability and multiplicity of chain designs, but modularity alone, as an evolution from monolithic chain, leads to fragmentation across liquidity and users. It creates a multi-chain ecosystem that either require awkward and inefficient bridging or sacrificing chain sovereignty. There will be no mass adoption with siloed liquidity and users. And I agree with that. So it says aggregation offers the sovereignty and scale of modular architectures, as well as the unified liquidity and UX of a monolithic system, synthesizing these two approaches into something novel. And we already talked about the benefits. So for L1s and L2s to connect to the Ag layer, they maintain full sovereignty, but also get to tap into a huge pool of unified liquidity, making it easy to bootstrap liquidity. For dApp developers, they reach users in aggregate. They don't have to focus on TVL because it's all connected. So they just have to focus on the product being good and users will come. And then for end users, that UX is like the internet, a single environment that doesn't require cumbersome and frequent bridging. So in closing, the Ag layer is not fully functioning yet. I don't even think the Polygon zkEVM is connected to it just yet, but it will be live. They're thinking sometime this year. Polygon has some of the best ZK devs in the business. I talked to the team and I'm excited for what they're working on. I already made a price prediction video on Polygon. They already have a lot of great partnerships. So I think the sky is the limit for Polygon. So if you like this kind of content, you want to get access to exclusive research, AMAs from different projects in the space, and our world-class yield farming course that helps you generate passive income just like a professional market maker, click the link in the description, book a free strategy session. You'll talk to me or one of our coaches. We'll see if our program is a good fit for you. If not, continue to enjoy the free content that we put on YouTube. But with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love every single one of you watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and trade safe.